Hello everyone, and welcome back to Smart Spiritual Solutions. In this channel, we use the Bible to solve everyday problems and improve our overall lifestyle. One problem with many Christians in this world is that they do not set their priorities very well. For example, some people are very serious about the things that God does not care too much about, but they forget about the things that God holds in very high esteem. I think one example of this kind of behavior in the scriptures would be with the Pharisees, as Jesus Christ discussed their behavior in Matthew chapter 23 verse 23, where he said, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone." They focused on whether people paid tithes and how much they donated to the ministry, but they didn't care about whether people were faithful and dedicated to living a godly life. And the Israelites even did the same thing too, as they prioritized the animal sacrifices over the bigger things that God actually cared about. However, we see in Psalms chapter 50 verses 9 to 12 and Isaiah chapter 1 verses 10 to 15 that God did not even have too much value for these animal sacrifices anymore, and he was even tired of them. Because since they had forgotten about the spiritual side of the offering, the physical side of it, of actually performing the sacrifices, just became meaningless. And Jesus Christ also called out Martha for having the same kind of habit of not putting her priorities in the right places in Luke chapter 10 verses 40 and 41, because instead of Martha focusing on the important thing that Mary was focusing on, she was more focused on serving Jesus with physical food, because once again she had mixed up her priorities. However, like I said, many Christians in our time do this too, because many Christians now wouldn't dare to miss a single church service or not pay their tithes, which are things that God does appreciate, but not as important as the other things that God holds in high esteem, which they, on the other hand, do not care as much about and do not focus on. And it is very important that we do focus on these things, because even though things like paying tithes are good, those things alone won't save you. But there are things that God does care about. Things like raising children, for example. We can see how God severely punished Eli the priest, not because he didn't conduct the necessary rituals for his priesthood, but because he didn't raise his children well, and he forgot about one of the things that God cared about the most. On the other hand, God recognized and blessed Abraham in Genesis chapter 18 verse 19, just because he raised his children well, showing that this is something that God holds in very high esteem. And there are also many other places in the Bible that portray the idea of focusing on what matters most, such as 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 1, where St. Paul advised us to covet the best gifts. But what are exactly these best gifts that we should be coveting? Well, one of the best gifts is the knowledge of God. And the knowledge of God is the facts that we learn about God from diligently studying the scriptures. And this knowledge is important because it is what tells you the life that you need to be saved. King Solomon said in Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 12, "The excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it." Wisdom is the principal thing, said King Solomon. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all that getting, get understanding. A Christian should also focus on seeking good virtues, because who cares if you can give thousands of dollars to a pastor if you are envious, proud, or even a fornicator? So instead, we should focus on learning to acquire some of the virtues that were listed in Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 to 23, like patience, faith, humility, and more, as that is the only way we can really be in line with God. And lastly, one thing I think Christians should also pay very close attention to is showing a good example to others. Many pastors and other Christians only focus on preaching with their mouths, but the Bible tells us that showing a good example to others is also kind of like a form of preaching, because not only are you showing people what a good Christian should look like, but you're also glorifying God's name in the process. Because when we do things like refuse to partake in things we know God wouldn't like, or talking in a righteous manner, we are also showing people a good image of what the ideal Christian should look like. And it is only when we focus on these things that we can actually get a reward from God in the end. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5 verse 6, "Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled." But I think this is where I can stop on discussing how we can get our priorities right as Christians. If you have enjoyed this video or gotten something useful from it, I greatly appreciate if you hit that like button and also the subscribe button, so you can follow our channel and have more spiritual advice videos at your disposal, and also to click the notification bell so you'll know when we post again. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.